Today in reading, we're going to continue talking about character traits, but we're going to focus specifically on what we can learn about the characters from how they respond to problems in the story. And Miss Amato had a fun little activity to start us off.
I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to kind of tell you a story, and I want you to just kind of picture yourself in this story. So it's a hot summer day, and you're on the beach. You go to get a triple scoop ice cream cone, favorite ice cream. Once you walk away from the ice cream stand, you are holding it really carefully in your hand. Just as you go to lick it, it falls off the cone and into the sand. Now pause. What would you do right after the ice cream fell?
All right, pause and think about what would you do? And I'm going to think too. All right, I think if the ice cream fell, I would feel a little bit upset and I'd probably go back to the ice cream stand and ask them if there's any way they could give me another one. And maybe if they were like, can't give it to you for free, I'd be like, okay, guess I'll pay for another one.
All right. So a lot of your answers were probably different. If your parents shared an answer or your siblings shared an answer, what they would do, it might have been different than what you would have done. And the way we respond to problems can be very different. Okay. So there's many ways. So like maybe when your ice cream fell, you might cry and walk away because you're really upset about it. You might say, oh, well, and then maybe walk up to the ice cream stand and say, hey, can I have another one? My ice cream fell. Or maybe you notice like only a little bit of the ice cream got sandy and you might clean it off and still try to eat it. So as you can see, with one problem, there's many ways to respond.
Wow, Miss Amato makes a really good point that in any situation, there's so many different ways that you can respond to a problem, and it really depends on a person's character traits, a lot of times, how they're going to respond. And we're going to go back and look at that frog and toad story that we read on Monday to think about what can we learn from the characters based on how they responded to the problem in The Lost Button. So, looking back at the story, The Lost Button, the problem was that Toad had lost one of the buttons on his jacket. So, the way that Frog responds to this problem is he says, we will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button. And this can tell us a lot about Frog's character traits. And I'm actually going to pull from some of the work that you all did Monday. And some of the things that you all said is that Manya said that Frog is a helpful character. And I agree, he is trying to help Toad with this problem. Carly said that Frog is an optimistic character. And I agree because he's not giving up. He's not saying, oh, we'll never find this tiny little button in all these places we just went. Optimistic, I thought was a great word. That means that you have a positive attitude and you're like, we're going to figure this out. And that's what it sounds like Frog is doing here when they have this problem. He's like, we'll find your button soon. So that was Frog. Now let's think about Toad. So the way Toad responds is he goes along with Frog, and Frog will find a button. He'll say, here's your button. And every time Toad says, that is not my button. And first he says it kind of calmly, but remember as we read on, he seemed to get more and more frustrated. And the way he would say, that is not my button, would get a little more upset. So like here he's saying, that is not my button, cried Toad. That word cried tells us he didn't just say it. He was like, that is not my button. And I remember he got more and more dramatic about it. Like here he's shouting that it's not his button. Some of the things you all said this can teach us about Toad is that he's kind of an impatient character according to Layton. And I agree, he's impatient. They're searching, Frog's helping, but he really wants to find this button like quickly. Nithya was like, he seems pretty picky. Like they're finding other buttons, but he's not going to be satisfied with any button that's not that exact one. And Tavisha was like, he also seems kind of like a whiny character. So he likes to complain a lot. And that's what we're seeing him do when he has this problem. So all of those character traits that you all came up with, we can come up with those based on how these two characters responded differently to the same problem. So for your reading activity, you're going to listen to Miss Amato read one of my favorite Frog and Toad stories, The Hat, which you may remember I talked about for writing. So you're going to listen to that story and answer 3 questions. You're going to think about what's the problem in the story? How does Frog respond to that problem? And how does the way he respond to the problem help us learn about him as a character?